There is a moment, a single moment, that separates the man who dreams from the man who achieves. And in that moment, nothing is decided by luck. Nothing is decided by chance. Nothing is decided by the family you were born into, the money you have in your pocket right now, or the opinions of people who never dared to try. That moment is decided by one thing only, the way you think. Somewhere, right now, a person with less talent than you, less education than you, fewer resources than you, is building something extraordinary. And somewhere else, a person with more talent, more money, more advantages, is wasting every single one of them. Why? Because winning was never about what you have. Winning was always about what you think. Sit with that for a second, because everything I am about to tell you is going to challenge the way you have been taught to see success. You have been told that success comes from hard work alone. That is a lie of omission. Millions of people work hard every single day of their lives and remain exactly where they started. You have been told that success comes from education, and yet the halls of history are filled with men and women who never finished school and still change the world. You have been told that success comes from connections, from being born in the right place, at the right time, to the right family. And yet, again and again, someone rises out of poverty, out of obscurity, out of nothing, and becomes everything. So what is the difference? What is the one thing that separates those who rise from those who remain? It is thought, organized, disciplined, burning thought. And today I am going to show you exactly how winners think. Not the polished version they show the world, but the raw internal machinery that runs behind their eyes every single day. Let us begin with the foundation of every great achievement that has ever existed. Before there was a bridge, there was a thought of a bridge. Before there was a company, there was a thought of a company. Before there was a symphony, a painting, a nation, a cure for a disease, there was a single thought held in a single mind, refusing to let go. Thought is the seed of all reality. Everything you see around you, the chair you are sitting in, the device in your hand, the roof over your head, was once nothing but an idea inside someone's mind. That person believed in that idea before it had any right to exist. That person nurtured that idea before the world gave them a single reason to. This is the first thing you must understand about the way winners think. They do not wait for proof before they believe. They believe first, and the proof follows. The ordinary mind demands evidence before it will commit. The winning mind commits, and then goes out and creates the evidence. This is not blind foolishness. This is the deepest law of achievement. That thought, when held with enough intensity, when fed with enough emotion, when repeated with enough discipline, begins to shape the actions that shape the results. Now, here is where most people fail before they even begin. They have wishes, they have wants, they have vague, floating desires that drift in and out of their minds like clouds on a windy day. I want to be successful. I want to be rich. I want to be respected. These are not thoughts that build empires. These are whispers that dissolve the moment life gets difficult. A wish costs you nothing, and so it is worth nothing. A wish will not get you out of bed at 5 in the morning. A wish will not make you knock on the door that was just slammed in your face. A wish will not carry you through the years of obscurity before anyone notices your name. What winners have is not a wish. It is a burning desire, a desire so intense that it becomes an obsession, a desire that you think about when you wake up and when you fall asleep. Speak a desire that survives rejection, survives failure, survives the doubt of everyone around you, because it has become part of your identity, not just part of your schedule. When your desire is strong enough, you stop needing motivation. Motivation is what weak desire requires to keep functioning. Burning desire needs no motivation because it is the fire itself. I want you to ask yourself something honestly, not what you would like to have, not what would be nice, but what do you want with such intensity that you would be willing to endure years of struggle, years of being misunderstood, years of walking alone in order to have it? If nothing comes to mind with that kind of intensity, That is the real problem you must solve before any strategy, any plan, any technique will matter. Weak desire produces weak results, no matter how many books you read or how many hours you work. Now let us talk about the second pillar, because desire without direction is nothing but restlessness. Winners do not simply want success in some vague, undefined way. They have what I call definiteness of purpose. They know with painful precision exactly what they are working toward, not someday, not eventually. Not when the time is right. They can tell you right now in specific terms what they are building, why they are building it, and what it will look like when it is finished. Compare this to the average person who cannot tell you what they want beyond the next paycheck. Ask most people what they truly desire from their life, and you will watch them stumble, hesitate, generalize. I just want to be happy. I just want to be comfortable. These are not destinations. These are directionless hopes dressed up as goals. A ship without a destination will drift wherever the current takes it, and so will a life without a defined purpose. The ocean does not care where you end up. Neither does life. You must decide, and decide specifically, or the current will decide for you. This is why every person who has achieved anything extraordinary can point to the moment they made a decision. Not a wish, a decision. A line drawn in the sand that said, from this day forward, this is what I am building, and I am not turning back. Indecision is the silent killer of dreams. It does not announce itself as failure. It disguises itself as caution, as patience, as waiting for the right moment. But the right moment is a myth sold to people who are afraid to commit. Winners do not wait for certainty, because certainty never arrives before action. It arrives because of action. Now, once desire and purpose are established, we must talk about the enemy that destroys more dreams than any external circumstance ever could. And that enemy lives inside your own mind. It is fear. Specifically, it is the fear of failure, the fear of criticism, the fear of poverty, the fear of what other people will think when you dare to attempt something greater than what they expect of you. Understand this clearly. Fear is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. Fear is often a sign that you are doing something that matters. The mind that never feels fear is usually the mind that never attempts anything worth fearing. What separates the winner from the person who stays frozen is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to let fear make the final decision. Winners feel the same fear as everyone else. Their hands shake too. Their stomach tightens too. But they have trained themselves to act anyway, to move forward with trembling hands rather than not move at all. Think about the moment right before every major decision you have ever made. The moment before you asked for the raise. The moment before you started the business. The moment before you spoke up in the room full of people who intimidated you. That moment of fear was not a signal to stop. It was a test. And every time you obey that fear instead of walking through it, you teach your own mind that fear is in control. Speak. But every time you act despite the fear, you weaken its grip a little more, until one day you look back and realize the very things that used to terrify you no longer hold any power over you at all. Let us go deeper now into something most people never consider. The relationship between your thoughts and your subconscious mind. Every thought you think, especially the ones charged with strong emotion, sinks below the surface of your conscious awareness and begins to shape the deeper patterns of belief that drive your behavior. This is why simply trying harder is never enough if, underneath the surface, you still believe that you are not capable, that you do not deserve success, that people like you do not achieve things like that. Your subconscious mind does not judge whether a belief is true. It simply accepts what you feed it repeatedly and then works day and night to make your outer reality match your inner belief. This is why the most successful people in history were relentless about controlling what they allowed into their minds. They understood that every thought of doubt, every thought of fear, every thought of failure that they entertained was a seed being planted in soil that would eventually bear fruit. And they understood the reverse as well, that every thought of confidence, every image of the goal already achieved, Every feeling of certainty rehearsed in the mind was also a seed growing quietly until it eventually broke through the surface as reality. This is not mysticism. This is mental discipline. You are at every moment either programming your mind for victory or programming it for defeat. There is no neutral setting. Silence is not neutral because in silence, old programming continues to run. If you are not consciously feeding your mind images of the person you are becoming, you are, by default, allowing it to run on the fears and doubts that were planted in you long before you had the wisdom to question them. So here is a discipline every winner practices, whether they call it by this name or not. They control the conversation happening inside their own head. They catch the thought of "I can't" before it finishes forming, and they replace it deliberately with "I am learning how." They catch the thought of "this is too hard," and they replace it with "this is exactly what building something rare requires." This is not self-deception. This is self-direction. You are the only person who will spend every waking moment inside your own mind for the rest of your life. If you do not take responsibility for what happens in there, no one else ever will, and no one else ever could. Now, let us speak about something the world rarely tells you honestly. It is about failure, not the polished, inspirational version of failure that gets quoted on posters, the real, painful, humiliating experience of failure that makes you question everything you believe about yourself. Every single person who has ever achieved anything of significance has walked through this fire. Not around it, through it. There is no path to greatness that bypasses failure. The only choice you have is whether failure becomes the end of your story or simply a chapter in it. The average mind treats failure as a verdict. It says, "I failed, therefore I am a failure. Therefore this was never meant for me." The winning mind treats failure as information. It says, "This did not work. Therefore, I now know one more thing that does not work, and I am one step closer to what does." This single shift in interpretation is the difference between someone who quits after their first setback and someone who becomes unstoppable, precisely because they have already survived 100 setbacks that would have destroyed a weaker resolve. Every failure carries within it a seed of equivalent benefit if you have the discipline to search for it instead of running from it. This does not mean failure feels good. It never does. It is not supposed to. But the pain of failure is not your enemy. It is simply the price of admission for anyone attempting something that has never been done before, at least not by you. The question is never whether you will fail. You will, repeatedly. The only question that matters is whether you will use each failure as a reason to stop or as raw material to build the next, wiser attempt. Let us talk now about persistence, because this is where the vast majority of dreams die. Not in the beginning, when enthusiasm is high and the vision feels close, but in the long, quiet middle, when progress is invisible, when no one is watching, when the excitement has worn off and only the work remains. This is the point where most people quit, not because they were wrong about their goal, but because they underestimated how long the middle would last, and they mistook the absence of visible progress for the absence of any progress at all. Understand this. Growth is rarely visible in real time. A seed planted in the ground shows no sign of life for days. Underneath the soil, however, roots are forming. Structures are being built. The entire foundation for future growth is being laid, completely unseen. If you dug up that seed after 3 days because you saw no evidence of a plant, you would destroy the very thing that was about to break through the surface. This is exactly what happens to millions of dreams. People give up during the root-building phase, mistaking invisible progress for no progress, and they never get to witness the moment their effort would have finally broken through. Persistence is not simply about refusing to quit. It is about developing the patience to trust a process you cannot yet see the results of. This requires a level of faith that most people are unwilling to sustain. Not faith in luck, not faith in magic, faith in the law that consistent, purposeful effort applied over time produces results, even when today offers no visible proof of that law working in your favor. Now, I want to address something that winners understand and that ordinary thinking completely misses, and it is this. You become like the thoughts you associate with most consistently, and you become like the people you surround yourself with most consistently. No person achieves greatness in complete isolation. Behind every extraordinary individual, there is almost always a circle. Mentors, collaborators, people whose minds sharpen their own thinking, whose energy elevates their own energy, whose standards raise their own standards. If you surround yourself with people who have made peace with mediocrity, you will find it remarkably difficult to reach for anything greater, because their comfort will constantly whisper that your ambition is excessive, unrealistic, unnecessary. But if you surround yourself, even occasionally, even through books, through teachings, through the recorded wisdom of those who have already walked the path you are walking, you begin to absorb a different standard of what is possible. This is why winners are ruthless, not about how much time they work, but about who and what they allow to influence their thinking. Every conversation either deposits something valuable into your mind or withdraws something valuable from it. There is no neutral exchange. I also want to speak directly to the discipline of action, because thought alone, no matter how powerful, accomplishes nothing without it. Vision without action is merely a daydream. And here is the trap that catches so many bright, capable people, the trap of endless preparation. They tell themselves they are getting ready. They are studying, they are planning, they are waiting until conditions are perfect. But conditions are never perfect. There is always one more course to take, one more piece of information to gather, one more reason to delay the moment of actually beginning. Winners understand a simple, uncomfortable truth. You do not need to feel ready. You need to begin, and let the process of beginning make you ready. Clarity is not something you wait for before you start. Clarity is something you earn through the act of starting, through the feedback that only action can provide. The person who waits until they feel fully prepared will wait forever, because true preparation only reveals itself once you are already in motion, already facing the real obstacles that no amount of planning could have predicted. So let me ask you plainly, what have you been preparing for that you have not yet begun? What decision have you been circling for months or years, dressed up as careful consideration, when in truth it is simply fear wearing the costume of prudence? Somewhere in your life right now, there is an action you already know you need to take. You do not need me to tell you what it is. You already know. The only question is whether you will take it today or whether you will still be circling it a year from now, having convinced yourself that you were simply being wise. Let us now bring all of this together, because understanding these principles individually means nothing if you cannot weave them into a single, unshakable way of moving through your life. Winners think in terms of what is possible, not what is comfortable. They define their purpose with precision instead of drifting on vague hope. They feel fear and act anyway, refusing to let a feeling make decisions that belong to their will. They guard the thoughts they allow out into their minds as carefully as they would guard their most valuable possession, because they understand that those thoughts are quietly constructing the reality they will eventually live in. They interpret failure not as a verdict, but as tuition paid on the way to mastery. They persist through the invisible middle, trusting a process they cannot yet see the fruit of. They choose their circle deliberately, understanding that influence is never neutral. And above everything else, they act imperfectly, repeatedly, relentlessly. None of this requires you to be born into privilege. None of this requires a formal education beyond what you can teach yourself. None of this requires permission from anyone who doubts you. It requires only a decision made today to think differently than you have been thinking, and to keep making that decision again tomorrow and the day after, until the new way of thinking becomes simply the way you are. Somewhere out there, right now, someone with your exact background, your exact starting point, your exact list of disadvantages is building the life you have only allowed yourself to dream about in private. The difference between you and them is not the hand they were dealt. It is the way they chose to think about the hand they were dealt. Every excuse you have ever used to explain why you have not yet begun has already been overcome by someone with far less than you currently have. So the question I leave you with is simple, and it is the only question that has ever truly mattered on the path to any great achievement. Not, do you have what it takes? You already do. The question is, are you willing to think like the person you say you want to become, starting today, in this moment, before another day slips by exactly like the ones before it? Because the winners were never a different species of human being. They were ordinary people who simply refused to think in ordinary ways. And that same refusal is available to you right now, the instant you choose to claim it. Decide today what you truly desire with an intensity that will not let you rest. Define it with such clarity that you could describe it to a stranger in a single sentence. Guard your mind against every thought that does not serve that vision. Act before you feel ready, because readiness is a reward for action, not a requirement for it. Expect failure and mine it for what it can teach you rather than what it can prove about your worth. Surround yourself with minds that pull you upward and persist quietly, patiently, relentlessly through every invisible season until the day your effort finally breaks the surface for the entire world to see. That is how winners think. Not because they are chosen, not because they are lucky, but because they decided one thought at a time, one action at a time, one day at a time, to become someone the old version of themselves would hardly recognize. And that same decision is sitting in front of you right now, waiting only for you to pick it up.